Now we'll start the second chapter, which is inverse trigonometric functions. So the name itself suggests something. So in the previous chapter, what we did is we tried to understand what is a function and we tried to understand what is the inverse of a function. Right. In the previous chapter, we were concentrating on functions like 4x plus 3 and other functions. So these are all the functions which are called as algebraic functions, or we can think of other functions. In one such cases, in this chapter, if you observe, our main concentration is going to be only on finding the inverses of trigonometric functions, that is sine, cos, tan, and the remaining trigonometric functions. So let's see some basic introduction before we enter into the main context. Let's see what we are going to study in this chapter. So it is given in chapter 1, we have studied the inverse of a function f, which is called as f inverse. When do we define the inverse of a function to exist? Only when the function is 1, 1 and onto, means collectively it should be a bijective function. So the first condition to be satisfied. But from our experience, we would have seen that there are certain functions which are neither 1 to 1 nor onto nor both. So there might be such functions. For those kind of functions, we cannot talk about their inverses. That's what the second point says. Now, in class 11th, we would have studied about trigonometric functions. So if you observe the domain, the natural domain and range of a trigonometric function, they are neither 1 to 1 nor onto over their natural domain and ranges. Hence, we cannot think of their inverse to exist. So if you treat a trigonometric function as it is within its domain and range, we can definitely not define its inverse. So in order to make it, but this chapter says we can speak about the inverse of a trigonometric function. So if you need to create something of that sort, what we are going to do is we are going to create some restrictions on the domain and range of the given trigonometric function, so that we will try to make it as a one-to-one function and onto function and think of their inverse. That's what we mean by restricted domain and ranges. So please remember this word, restrictions. So it is written, in this chapter we shall study about the restrictions on domain and ranges of trigonometric functions which ensure the existence of their inverses and observe their behavior through graphical representations. We will observe their graph also and we will try to understand what changes we need to create on their domain and range. So in addition to the domain and range concept, we will study about certain elementary properties also. And this point says the inverse of trigonometric function plays an important role in calculus as they serve to define many integrals. So if you look at the order, the basic of everything is functions. So before that, obviously relations. So from relations you get functions. In functions, one of the types we discuss is inverse. In this chapter we concentrate upon inverse trigonometric functions. This inverse trigonometric function helps us to understand the differentiation, and after the differentiation we do the integration. So this is how the topics get linked. So it is very important for us to understand the basics of inverse trigonometric functions before we proceed to calculus.